we're learning about caring for our boat after we've been out on the water with Captain Swish.
I may be stating the obvious here, but obviously, you know, you're going to have salt spray. It doesn't matter how calm a day it is, that salt misty spray will end up right throughout the whole boat. It's just part of life in the water. So it's incredibly important. Now, Haines Hunter use the very best quality stainless steel fittings and rod holders and all that are custom made for the boat that are available on the market. But even so, it needs to have the salt removed. Always start, and I use a water blaster on a soft wash. I always start at the top of the cabin and I work down, because obviously that will then drain and drag all the salt to the lowest point, which will end up under the boat on the trailer. So once we've washed that all off, clean the windows, everything is just down, and we've done the cockpit and it's all looking tickety-boo. I do the helm, everything. It's just my Haines 485, man, it gets washed inside out like there's no tomorrow, but it's looking really cool. But once I've finished that, I then get a bucket of soapy water and I go over it again, just on the outside, and then just dribble water off, and I watch the bubbles being dragged down. So if there's any remnants of salt, which there'll always be up there, it gets dragged down and under the boat, and then I finally wash off completely under the boat, and I wash down the trailer winch, because the winch wire will always drag salt water up and it gets contained in the drum itself. So that gets a wash off in the winch post itself. So again, anything that drains down isn't going to rust. And then I go right under with the water blaster and give it a good clean, all the chines, all the whole hull, and then finally the trailer itself, and especially on the springs and everything else like that. And then you know you've got 99.9% of the salt away from the boat.
Awesome. And then what do we do about the engine? How do we work the engine?
That's what was really clever today, is that you raise your motor just slightly, and on the side of the motor itself you disconnect the water intake and you put your hose in there. Now before you actually turn on the water, make sure you run some water through, particularly on hot days, so that it's not warm water going through to start with. You've got cool water going through, connect it up and just let that hose run and flush that motor through. And what I generally do, I'll put one of the old smelly fishy bins out there and I collect that water rather than drowning the lawn, and once I know it's a certain level, that motor has been completely flushed all the way through and it's ready. But the one thing I do, as soon as I've turned that hose off, without thinking about anything else, I go and disconnect the hose, I undo my fitting and refit that back onto the motor. So there's no way you're ever going to get to the ramp or start the motor, which has happened. I've seen it happen myself. There's no water connected, so you can cook a motor. So, and then that fitting is always put in the same place every time on the boat, so it's always there. So again, we always start at the top. And another little trick is, see where your lugs are here with your where your canopy dome's in. Once a year you want to get some Vaseline and just put a smear of Vaseline in there. It stops any corrosion, but also makes taking the canopy on and off a lot easier. So it's one of those things, they don't need to corrode out over time, which they will if they're not clean. Just squirt in or smear in a little bit of Vaseline. It's a 5-minute job and your boat's going to always be good, and it's going to be easy putting canopies on and off. So starting at the top, and I even wash down the anchor winch, the trailer winch. Even though that's not been in the water, the actual trailer rope itself, or the cable has always got salt in it. So you see a lot of trailers are all rusty down here. Well, that's because no one washes them.